Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days. Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days. Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days.
Win your league, stack that bread, or start a boom and lose instead. Sunday Surefire, let's go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sunday Surefire podcast. I'm your host, Pat Martin, aka the Commish. Joining me today are my two best friends, my two co-hosts. We got my man Aaron Downtown Brown in the house.
Hey.
And we got my guy Ethan Weaver here alongside as well.
Commish, how we doing?
Doing good, boys. Doing good, boys. Week 15's here. It's playoff time for fantasy football.
Playoffs.
Talking about
playoffs. Yeah, hopefully you guys had a good fantasy season. Hopefully all your teams are in the playoffs. Well, I know for a fact there's a couple of Aarons that aren't, but it's okay.
Oh my God, we're on here for 30 seconds.
Dang.
He's throwing shots.
Throwing jabs. Hey, they're intentional.
we just talked about it before the stream.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Ethan already made fun of Aaron for missing the playoffs in a couple of weeks. So glad we can get the grievances out of the way and get them out of there live, which is good. So now the public can hear it as well. Well, I guess we'll quickly run down how we did in our leagues this year, because I feel like we blinked and 14 weeks go by and all of a sudden the playoffs are here. And personally, I made the playoffs in all the leagues that I wanted to make the playoffs in this year. And then a couple of dynasty rebuilds that were design rebuilds coming into the year, ended up with early draft picks in those leagues. I'll spare you all the details, but the moral of the story is I got some first round buys, got some teams fighting this week in the quarterfinals and the playoffs, and looking forward to better days with some quality assets in my leagues where I'm rebuilding it. Aaron, did you make the playoffs in any of your leagues, or were they all duds like Ethan mentioned?
I did, sir. So on the contrary to what Ethan said, I
said a couple leagues.
No, I made, I was the ones I was going for. I made, I think one of the longer standing leagues that we're all in. It's kind of my last hurrah, and I got some old vets, so the Derrick Henrys of the world and CMCs. So that's really my last hurrah in that league, and then went for a little bit of a rebuild and a few others. But I clinched first in our Sunday Surefire Invitational, so pretty proud of that.
Yeah, the league you just mentioned, my longest standing league as well. That's if I could choose one of the leagues that I win this year, it would be that one. But I'll probably something bad will probably happen. My team will fall off the rails like usual. But no, it was actually a great fantasy season for me. Every single league that I'm in the playoffs. Have a lot of first round buys, so it could be a very lucrative year for me. So we'll see how the playoffs go. As me and Commish were talking about earlier, this is the season of basically flip a coin. We don't know what's going to happen. It's hopefully you get lucky and you win a couple of games down the stretch here.
Yeah, my kind of long-standing take on fantasy football versus regular season versus the playoffs is it's about 70% skill in the regular season, 30% luck. Because a lot of things, you got to be on the ball. You got to make good draft picks, good trades, waiver wire stuff, all that. There's some skill involved in that, but you also got to avoid the landmine injuries, things like that. Some teams can score a ton of points against you here and there, but I think overall, usually those things kind of balance themselves out over the course of a 14-week regular season. On the playoffs, you just go ahead and flip that right on its head, where if you're in the playoffs, you're usually a good team. Most of your lineup is together. There's only a couple decisions you have to make, if that. But it really comes down to if you can outscore your opponent in a 1 week sample size. But we are here at that 30%. That can make a big difference to help you kind of make some of those calls in week 15 that can get your team to advance to the semifinals next week, hopefully. So we're going to be talking starts of the week for week 15. As always, if you want to follow along at home, we reference the Fantasy Pros Expert Consensus Ranking, or ECR, for half-point PPR. So if you want to follow along with that, those rankings, you can do so. For the running backs and wide receivers, we target players that are outside the top 24. You don't need my advice to know that you should start Christian McCaffrey this week. You could probably go ahead and pencil him into your lineup on your own. But, we give you guys that are a little bit further down the list. And at quarterback and tight end, we go guys outside the top 12 at their position. And this week, we're going to spice it up a little bit, too. We're going to talk about some guys, some kickers and some defenses, stuff we don't normally do that kind of thing here. But, it's that time of the year where every point matters. So if we can go that one extra mile to help someone squeak out a win in their league, with a kicker or a defense, we're willing to do that as well at this time of year. So we got a lot to get to today. I guess we'll just dive right into it, boys. Ethan, we had some discussion about this quarterback a little bit today before we came on, but go ahead and tell me who you're rolling with the quarterback.
Honestly, if I did not have I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but we are basing the rankings off Fantasy Pros consensus, half point PPR. And looking at those rankings, especially looking at the quarterback position, I'd be very concerned if I didn't have a quarterback inside the top 12. I don't think a lot of the quarterbacks outside the top 12 have relatively good matchups. And if they do, they've either been playing poorly or it's just been a complete coin flip in terms of how their output's going to be. But I'm talking about quarterback Baker Mayfield, who has a pretty nice matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. Baker and the whole Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has been struggling as of late. But just looking at the quarterbacks outside the top 12, I thought he had one of the best matchups. He is quarterback 13, so he's right in the cusp. And Atlanta has been pretty forgiving against the quarterback position fantasy-wise. I mean, just looking at the last 4 weeks, I mean, Bryce Young threw for over 400 yards against this Atlanta Falcons team. He had over 30 fantasy points. Tyler Shuck threw for 243 yards. Tyrod Taylor scored over 20 fantasy points. And Sam Darnold just tossed 3 touchdowns and 249 yards passing. So this Atlanta Falcons defense can be beat through the air. I think Baker is going to be throwing the ball quite often in this game. Their playoff lives depend on it. They need to get going. So I think if you're stuck in a position where you've been kind of streaming quarterbacks all year, or you drafted a quarterback like Baker Mayfield who was cooking early on, and you just kind of had him on your bench, I don't think he's a bad. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say desperation play. Obviously, not the most ideal play that you like in the first round, but I think it's a quarterback with a pretty safe floor. I mean, just talking about, look at the quarterbacks I just mentioned: Bryce Young, Tyler Shuck, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Darnold. I think if they can score 20 plus fantasy points, I think Baker Mayfield can too.
I think this is not so much a run to your waiver wire and pick up Baker Mayfield type of move as it is if you likely have him on your team already and Correct. You watch him struggle for the better part of the last 3 or so weeks. And you're looking at it like, okay, well, do I get into the streaming pool? Do I take some of these other guys, or do I stick with Baker now that all the money's on the table in the playoffs? And I'm with Ethan on this one. I like the call on Baker. I was kind of talking about beforehand, maybe mentioning him here, so I dove on him a little bit. Like you said, the Falcons can be beat. The Falcons actually have been beat by Baker in his last 4 outings against the Falcons, being a division opponent. He plays them a lot. He's gone over 20 points in each of those matchups as well. So he's got some. He has a good track record with this team. The team's getting healthy. Evans is expected to play in this game. Chris Godwin's going to play. And then that slots in Mecca Egbuka, who's been struggling too, kind of into a little bit of a lesser role, which might be good to take some of the burden off of him. So they're getting healthy, and it's a favorable matchup, and it's one that Baker has owned specifically. So I like to call it here, Aaron. If you have anything else to add on Baker, do it, and then just go ahead and hit me with your quarterback. Sure.
No, I'll be short and sweet. Baker's a safe play, especially for playoffs. I mean, with the real playoffs coming up, it's make or break time for these NFL teams. And then, for fantasy playoffs, I think Baker's he's usually is a pretty safe play. He's usually a week in, week out start. Has some down weeks with the injury a few weeks back, but I think he's going to turn into the dog that he is. So I like that call. I kind of went with a little bit deeper. I mean, sometimes you can kind of squeak in to the playoffs, and you might be looking for a tough play if you have Aaron Rodgers on your bench. I would say, I don't hate the call. Last week I liked Aaron Rodgers. I didn't have enough pride to show him on DFS. I did call out DK Metcalf. But one of the reasons I liked Aaron Rodgers last week is he was going up against a Baltimore defense that was pretty bad against the pass rush. And he threw for two touchdowns, right? So I think an older Aaron Rodgers getting a little bit more time to throw. He does show, that passing game can come alive at times. They're another team that's got to win. they've had a little bit of scrutiny. They got, this is kind of the last of his legacy as well. But this week playing against Miami, they are actually the worst pass rush in the entire league, giving Rodgers a little bit more time to throw. So I think Rodgers is good for 2 touchdowns. That's usually, like the floor you want in fantasy. You want your quarterback to throw at least 2 touchdowns and go from there. So I think Rodgers can do that this week.
Ethan, you in on Aaron Rodgers this week?
I mean, I think the matchup, ideally no, but but I mean, if you're playing, like I said, we talked about the streaming game, I think Aaron Rodgers, to Aaron's point, can go out there and carve up the Miami Dolphins. Hopefully, the Miami Dolphins can follow suit and keep the Pittsburgh Steelers' foot in the pedal, and they're just not running the ball. But I do think Aaron Rodgers in this matchup can come through for you in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, there might be a floor to be had there, which is if that's what you need from quarterback, I think you can do worse than that. I don't think he's going to bomb out for you. So maybe if you're favored to win your matchup, you're just a little short at quarterback. He's a guy that you pop into your lineup and you feel pretty good about. With my call, I picked a guy who was ranked in a similar tier, but is the opposite. Like Aaron Rodgers at the stage of his career is not going to go ahead and win you a matchup. So I circled the guy a little bit further down the board who has that the upside to, if you need to punch up this week against a better opponent, you need to kind of go for it at quarterback. I'm going to go. I think JJ McCarthy could be a guy that you fire up going up against the Dallas Cowboys this week. At QB 17, he's ranked. And we saw signs of life from him last week coming back from injury, throwing the 3 passing touchdowns. The Cowboys are a cupcake matchup for opposing quarterbacks who ranked dead last against the quarterback position in terms of points allowed. But kind of what really has me more so optimistic about McCarthy this week is I kind of look at the Vikings team at 5-8. They're out of contention. They know that they're not going to make the playoffs this season. So what they're really focused on now is developing McCarthy now that he's healthy and back on the field for the future. So I don't think they're going to really have the shackles on him in terms of like running the ball constantly. I think they're going to let him throw the ball around the yard to those good pass catchers that they do have to work with. And the matchup dictates towards it. This over-under on this game is approaching 50 points. So Vegas seems to think there's going to be some points scored. And I think McCarthy can get in on the action on this. So if you need a guy who can, be a wild card at quarterback, there's a low floor here as we've seen with him in the past, but there's also a pretty high ceiling too, especially if he can get the ball moving with his legs a little bit like we've seen in spurts earlier this season. So if you need to throw those dice at quarterback, I think McCarthy's a guy you can fire up this week.
I think JJ McCarthy is the perfect, like you said, long shot play. If you do need an upside, maybe you're looking at your matchup and you're like, wow, I need a little bit of juice to compete in this one. I think JJ McCarthy, I'd rather start JJ over a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like we said, just because JJ McCarthy offers a ceiling strictly because of the matchup against Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, JJ McCarthy has had a horrible year. He looked relatively good last week. So hopefully he can continue and have some success against the Dallas Cowboys. The follow-up question to JJ McCarthy, if you're starting him, do you start Justin Jefferson in week 15?
I do. I'm not going away from Justin Jefferson. Unless you can show me a team where you're loaded and you got all these great options at wide receivers, sure. But in this matchup as well, they're also. We're going to get to with one of my picks later, but they're also number one. Dallas is also number one in the league against our ranked 32nd in the league, however you want to say it, against wide receivers. They give up a ton of points to them as well. So yes, I'm not benching Jefferson.
Yeah, it's another one where it's a good matchup no matter what quarterback is starting against Dallas. The only thing is it is in Jerry's world, is kind of a tough to place to play in at times. They're still mathematically in it. But yeah, I think it goes back to what Commissioner was saying, where it kind of depends. Are you kind of throwing a Hail Mary? Did you squeak your way into the playoffs? Is JJ, is he one where he's kind of playing week to week for his job, right? For the next couple, franchise of the team. So he's got to kind of keep putting out week in, week out. It's it's one of those, how comfortable are you with your roster this week? If you gotta maybe go with a gutsy start at QB, McCarthy might be worth a shot in a higher scoring game. It's kind of the opposite as my Aaron Rodgers take, as Kamish said. If you want to go a little more safe, I'd go with Rodgers.
Ethan, are you benching Jefferson this week?
I mean, one of my dynasty leagues, I'm debating it. I probably won't just because of the matchup. Let's put it this way: if it wasn't for the Dallas Cowboys matchup, I honestly would consider it in one of my dynasty leagues. In redraft, I understand you probably don't have the options, but think about it. In half point PPR, he hasn't scored over 10 fantasy points since week 9. I mean, it's and he hasn't scored over 20 all year. So I mean, what right now you have zero ceiling, and right now you have a very small floor. I mean, it's been a crazy year for Jefferson. His floor's 0 and his ceiling 0. I mean, you're just hoping for 10 points. It's just been that kind of year for him. It's very disappointing.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you drafted him early in redraft like a lot of people did. I guess I look at it more from the lens of redraft at this point in the year. But yeah, if you're in a deep dynasty league that's been going for years and you've had the opportunity to acquire other additional wide receivers or other running backs so you can throw into flex spots, whatever the case may be, yeah, I could see a case for benching Jefferson this week. I just think a lot of people are going to find themselves in a spot where what am I, they probably don't have better options and they're just going to roll with them.
Yeah, we are talking more redraft. It's just like he's one of those guys that you just keep throwing in your lineup in redraft and just getting 0 results from it. So it's I'm assuming most people who took Jefferson in the first round, I mean, a lot of those teams probably didn't even make the playoffs. It's just it's tough when you miss out on your first round pick.
Yeah, it definitely can be tough. But let's keep the train moving, guys. Let's go over to the running back position here. In terms of this guy, not a lot of people have thought much coming into the league for Ethan's running back call out here and Monangai, but that's who you're calling out tonight, Ethan. He's definitely been a lot more than a 0 so far to this point in the fantasy season, and it seems like you think he's going to have a good week for the first round of the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I know you look at the matchup initially and you're like, man, the Cleveland Browns, they're so good against the run all year. But I mean, over the last 6 weeks, they've actually given up the 6th most PPR fantasy points to running back. I know Monangai's not going to crush in full point PPR or even half point PPR. He's more, he doesn't get a lot of receiving, but he does get a few targets a game. But I just think this Cleveland Browns team, I mean, they just got torched by Tony Pollard. The Bears rank 1st in the NFL in rushing attempts per game with 31.2. And I think the Chicago Bears are going to get up early on the Cleveland Browns. I don't think this is going to be a very close game. So I think there is going to be a uptick in rushing attempts for a team that already runs the ball more than any other team in the NFL. Not only do they run it the most, they are also very efficient. They are 2nd in the league with 152.6 yards per game, and they average 4.9 yards per carry, which ranks 6th. So this run game is very, very good. One of the league's best. And it's essentially been a 50-50 split with Swift and Monangai. They basically rotate series. Monangai's actually been getting a few more goal line opportunities over Swift as well. And I'm just banking on volume here and a rushing touchdown. I think Monangai clears 15 carries, and I think he falls in the end zone. So I think Monangai is a pretty safe floor in week 15. So it's for a guy that's ranked RB 29 on the week, I don't think he's a bad flex play. And I think you can be comfortable putting in your lineup.
Yeah, as Ethan said, I mean, Chicago is the 4th best run blocking team in the league. Again, this is playoff time. Some of these playoff teams are going to be a little more conservative too. So that means run game and defense. Cleveland, I mean, yeah, they are trying to open it up a little bit more with Sanders. I mean, this is a team that, last year they're the highest pass attempts in the league with Stefanski's offense. And you didn't really see that with Dylan Gabriel, but we are starting to see that with Sanders. So I think that does make, more scoring opportunities, more possessions equals a little bit more fantasy points in general. So I don't hate the call. I kind of went with a similar approach in a way, similar type of player guy I was kind of out on earlier in the year, but he's kind of turning into a pretty viable option. That's Woody Marks with the Texans. Also another great matchup. Arizona is a bottom tier team against the run. But again, another team, a defensive minded coach. They don't want to make mistakes. They have a great defense. You run the ball and you have a great defense. That's kind of the formula this time of year. So, I mean, when you have that formula going up against one of the worst run defenses in the league, I like Woody Marks a lot. Plus, Chubb is banged up too, so he should get even more carries than what he has been getting. So I love Woody Marks. I love Woody Marks in DFS this week as well as a little tidbit as well. He's pretty cheap, but yeah, for a nice flex play if you're wondering who to start, I like Woody Marks this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he'd be so cheap on DFS. I think Woody Marks has a killer matchup. Chubb did not practice today, and he's coming off a game where he had 26 touches, carries, I should say, when Chubb missed time. So I think Woody Marks is a very, very good play this week. I'd be more than happy to get him in my lineup. I'm surprised he's ranked outside the top 24. Maybe that's contingent upon Chubb's health, but even if Chubb is healthy, I think you can lock and load Woody Marks. That Houston Texans defense is going to give Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals fits. I think they're going to be up. Stroud has really, I mean, he hasn't been playing awful, but he's just kind of steering the ship. He's managing the team, getting just relying on that defense to keep them ahead. And I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Woody Marks if the Houston defense can keep Arizona from putting up some points.
Marks is a good play if assuming, especially if Chubb is out for the volume purposes. I think it might be contingent on the pricing and all that stuff is contingent upon Marks' health, who also didn't practice today with an ankle injury. So I think that something to monitor as well with Marks as the week progresses. But Ethan just said he saw 26 carries, he saw 3 targets as well. He was heavily utilized in that game on Sunday night. So it could just be they're kind of taking it easy with him, where Chubb is an older back who's probably headed towards a missed game. I don't know that, but that would be my guess. So they could just be kind of giving him a little bit of rest to get him ramped up for a big workload in a good matchup. So just monitor the medicals when it comes to Marks as the week progresses. But he's assuming he's gonna, in line for a full workload, he should be a good play as well. And in terms of running backs here, we got one more to talk about, and it's for me here. I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy coming off the bye, playing against the Washington Commanders, who are Tracy himself is RB30 on the week. I really like this matchup as well. Washington gives up they're the 5th most points to opposing running backs so far this season. And the last time we saw the Giants play, they called 0 design runs for Jackson Dart, kind of doing the coaching staff doing their best to keep him upright and healthy. Jackson Dart wasn't doing as his part to keep himself upright and healthy, kind of being reckless with his body, taking unnecessary shots on the sideline. Step out of bounds, pal. But the coaching staff is at least doing their part to kind of let the running backs take on the responsibility of the running game. And I think we could also see some more kind of screen passes, shorter check down area passes this week, kind of to be an extension of the run game, which we know is Tracy's bread and butter, being a former college wide receiver. So I think if you're in a tough spot where you're looking for a flex play at running back and you're rostering Tyrone Tracy, I think it's a spot where you could fire him up in a good matchup. Hopefully the volume's there and maybe he falls in the end zone, and then all of a sudden you have an RB2 on your hands. I think he can outperform the RB30 ranking pretty easily in this spot.
No, I love the Giants running backs this week against the Commanders. I would love them even more if Tyrone Tracy didn't play, like if it was just Devin Singletary. But I think Tyrone Tracy's going to be fine. I know he had a hip bruise or something against the Patriots a couple weeks ago, but he obviously had the bye week. And I think it's wheels up for the Giants run game against the Commanders. So as kind of gross as it sounds to start Singletary or Tyrone Tracy, I think you can trust them and be pretty comfortable with their floor this week in week 15 to start the playoffs.
I like Tracy. I'm also hoping for him. I'm starting him myself as my last flex option in a league I really want to win in. So I like Tracy. I mean, yeah, the Giants are just kind of in that mode where it's, they got nothing else to lose and, trying to show what offense they have left for the year. So I like the call of Tracy. I mean, only thing to watch out for is Singletary actually has been pretty relevant the last couple of weeks in the running game for the Giants. So Singletary may steal some of those goal line opportunities, but as Kamish said, Tracy should get some nice play in the passing game as well. So that's kind of my take on Tracy.
Yeah, fair enough. And before we transition to the wide receiver group, we had a question pop up here in the chat here from I'll show it up here. It's this isn't about fantasy necessarily, but it's a hardcore Lions fan asking a question about the Detroit Lions. Do we think the Lions are going to go ahead and make the playoffs this year, guys? What do you think? This would have been a no brainer when the season started, but look where we are now. So what do you guys think, Ethan? Are the Detroit Lions going to make the playoffs?
I mean, I hope so. I like the Lions. I like what they're doing. I think Dan Campbell's done a nice job there. I mean, right now they are. Let me see here. Let me just bring it up. I just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah. Right now they're the 8th seed, so they're one spot. Honestly, they're one win behind the Bears. Bears are 9-4. Lions are 9-5. I mean, it's the NFC is just stacked this year. I mean, the Rams, Packers, Eagles, Bucks, Seahawks, Niners, and Bears currently take up the top 7 spots. The Lions right there on the bubble. They're going to need one of those teams to falter. Offhand, do you guys know the Lions' last remaining games?
Yeah, they. I mean, they got a hard
yeah.
matchup. Yeah, they play the Rams, which is a tough matchup, but I think they can potentially win out after that. And with their last game playing the Bears. So, I mean, I think they got a pretty good shot of making a nice run for it. And I can't see the Bears winning out as well. So, I mean, I'm kind of in a funny position talking about this with who would have thought, the Chiefs being out of playoff contention this year. They're, Chiefs and Lions. If you were to poll everyone before the season of them not making the playoffs, that would be a pretty lucrative bet if you actually bet that. So, but yeah, I think the Lions are still a great team. It's just a tough, division this year. But yeah, I think if they can, at least get the next 3 out of 4, I think they can make it.
Yeah, looking at the remaining schedule, I think the Lions make it. I mean, I know even if they lose to the Rams this weekend, I mean, you have the Steelers. I think that's a win. The Vikings and the Bears. So if they can go, like you said, 3-1, and then you can beat the Bears last week of the season, that might be for the division. So if I was going to bet on it, I'd say the Lions are going to be in the playoffs.
All right. I don't have anything else to add. That was more or less what I was going to add. Just toss the remaining games out there and tell you that I think they're going to make it as well. It might sneak in as that's number 7 seed, but I'll tell you what, if you work your butt off to get the number 2 seed, you just missed the first round bye, but you're feeling pretty good about yourselves. You get the Lions offense coming to town right away in the playoffs. So the NFC is tough this year. So it's going to be a fun playoff field, but I do think the Lions sneak in there as well. Speaking of guys, you can sneak into your lineup here. Let's transition to the wide receiver position here. We're talking starts of the week. If anyone else has questions, whether it's real football like we just went over, or if it's got more to do with fantasy starts at decisions that you're weighing, toss them out there, guys. We're happy to bring up your comments and put them up here. Wide receiver, I guess I'm in on the Vikings this week because I talked about McCarthy earlier. I'm going with Jordan Addison, who's WR34. I wanted to go a little bit further down the pecking order this week. We always talk about guys outside the top 24 in Fantasy Pros ECR, so went down the line a little bit here. I'm just cautiously optimistic about the Vikings passing attack on Sunday night against Dallas. Like I said earlier, they've given up the most points to opposing wide receivers so far this year. Obviously, Jefferson, despite a quote-unquote down year by his standards, he's going to draw his share of attention, which I think leaves Addison one-on-one most of the day. And I just think if you're rostering Addison, particularly in redraft leagues, like he's just one of those guys where at this point in the year, in week 15, like if you're not playing him this week, then why is he even on your lineup? Like why is he on your team? Because like if you're not firing up in this matchup, you're not going to fire him up again the rest of the way. So I'm confident enough rolling with Addison as a flex play if I'm kind of mulling between a few different guys in this territory. For my final starting spot, I think he's a guy you can fire up and he'll give you a chance.
I like the call strictly because of the matchup. Obviously, if we think J.J. McCarthy has a shot to produce in fantasy this week, I think you got to trust a guy in Addison who's been, I feel like McCarthy's number one target earner in Jordan Addison. I mean, he had 7 targets last week, 10 the week before. I would be shocked if he doesn't get over 10 plus targets against Dallas. If Dallas is going to put up points and JJ and that Vikings offense is going to need to keep up, I think it's 10 plus targets for Addison. And I think he has a pretty good day.
Yeah, he's 7 plus targets in 4 of his last 5 games. So like I said, this is the matchup. If you have him, you probably want to use him. Yep. Aaron, if you got any thoughts on that, throw them out there. If not, that's fine. Just go on to your next receiver.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's just move on here. I mean, Addison, I think, is just like, hit or miss. I mean, you look at Jamison Williams, he was the number 2 option with the Lions last week, and he outscored St. Brown's. So, I mean, I think Addison, as you said, has a good chance. But my wide receiver this week, I want to call it as Jaden Reed coming back from IR. I like Jaden in this matchup. It's a big game for the Packers and Broncos. And so, as we mentioned throughout, this year, that the Denver defense secondary isn't quite, they've given up a lot of points to wide receiver, and they also happen to be the 3rd worst defense covering the slot wide receivers. So I think in a game where Denver can pressure the quarterback, I mean, that kind of makes sense. It's kind of the formula where if you get into the quarterback, you got to go to a quick option at the slot or tight end or something. So I think that's where Jaden Reed can get you some, especially in a PPR league. I think Jaden Reed is going to be he's quickly earning targets here on out to help with their playoff run as well. So I'm going to call out Jaden Reed this week.
Commish, I'll let you comment.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Reed's come back from injury, missed most of the season. Obviously, it's kind of surprising me. He came out of nowhere last week where he was coming back from injury. He was almost an afterthought in my head. He's a guy that, I mean, when the Green Bay wide receiver room is fully healthy, it's kind of tough to peg who to trust, right? Because there's so many capable bodies there. Is it a Romeo Doubs week? Is it Jaden Reed week? Lately, it's been a Christian Watson week ever since he's returned to form. So if there's a guy I want to bet on and I need upside in the playoffs, he's the one I want to roll with if I can get my hands on him. I'm just a little bit worried about the matchup this week, honestly. It's not someone I'm starting with confidence. At Denver's a tall order for anybody. So I get it. He's a good player. He's fresh for the stretch run here. But I would probably stay away from Jaden Reed this week, Ethan. What do you think?
I agree. I'd stay away. One, because we've only seen 1 week since his return to injury. He only had 4 targets. He had 4 receptions. But Jordan Love, I mean, he's been up and down all year. Christian Watson's been the guy there. But yet again, he only had 4 targets himself this past week. It's a very, very tough matchup. I mean, Jordan Love has, I feel like, struggled at times this year. And as the commish said, they do tend to spread the ball around. I mean, there's a lot of bodies there with Wicks, Dobbs, the tight end group there in Musgrave and company. But it's, I think in the first round of the playoffs, like this is, I mean, you're trying to survive, right? You're trying to survive this week. I don't think I'd want to put my eggs in the Jaden Reed basket.
Well, Aaron does, and that's all well and good. It's good when we have differing opinions on here.
He's going to go off this week now.
He is.
Yeah. And Ethan was talking about Jordan Love struggling. When Jordan Love struggles, it's against tough matchups. If you just comb through, he's been one of the most predictable quarterbacks in league fantasy. Anyway, I know this isn't necessarily a Jordan Love conversation, but if you just scroll through his game logs, find a site where it's like the green matchups are good, red matchups are bad, and you can just pick it out.
Exactly.
Like with the matchup screen, he scores like 18 plus fantasy points. When it's not, he's like 12 points. So I just think this is a spot where they struggle. They might win the game because I think their team is good, but I think this is going to be a tooth and nail, relatively low scoring dogfight, and I just don't want to start really any wide receiver in this game, especially not Jordan Reed.
Yeah, and maybe
Jaden Reed.
And maybe with the Denver Broncos, their outside corners shutting down like guys like Christian Watson, Dobbs, as Aaron alluded to, maybe the area to target the Denver Broncos is in the slot, which is why Aaron likes to play. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell.
Yeah, Aaron called them out, so he'll probably score twice. But
That's right.
that's just how things
He's
go
in my
sometimes.
DFS lineup for about 10 lineups. So
Okay, so that's it. Well, if you guys want another million, if you guys want $1 million, there it is.
Well, that's light exposure for Aaron downtown Brown. Only 10 shares of him on a given week. So that's good. For those that don't know and are listening, Aaron took down the DraftKings $1 million contest about 2 months ago. So he's still firing away on those DFS lineups. So if he likes them, you know what? Who are Ethan and I to say that we don't like a guy? But that's where we're at here in week 15. But Aaron, Ethan, you're going with a guy that missed a chunk of the year due to injury as well for your wide receiver play. Talk to me about Chris Godwin.
Yeah, this is a little contingent upon if Mike Evans plays. I mean, either way, if Mike Evans comes back, I don't think he's going to be out there for 80-90% of the snaps anyways, and it might take a little bit of pressure off Chris Godwin. But, I mean, Emeka Egbuka hasn't eclipsed 60 yards. He's eclipsed 60 yards once in the past 8 weeks, I believe. I know he's still getting targets, but for some reason, him and Baker have just lost touch. I feel like Godwin has kind of been his guy the last couple of weeks. Godwin dropped a touchdown a couple of weeks ago, so his numbers will be looking better over the last couple of weeks. And as I said with Baker, Atlanta is an exploitable defense through the air. And especially if Evans is out, I think Godwin is going to be the go-to guy. I think he has a pretty safe PPR floor in this matchup because I think Baker is gonna throw it. As the commissioner alluded to, Baker tends to play very well against the Atlanta Falcons. I discussed numerous low-end quarterbacks who played very well against this Atlanta Falcons defense. So I'm willing to take what I predict to be the wide receiver one of the Buccaneers for this week to play relatively well, especially, I mean, a guy that's ranked outside the top 24. He is currently ranked wide receiver 27. So at wide receiver 3 prices, I don't mind getting Godwin into my lineup.
Aaron, Ethan didn't like your Jaden Reed call in a deep wide receiver room in Green Bay. Do you like his call on Godwin in a deep wide receiver room in Tampa Bay?
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? No, Ty, you know what? My reason why is because if Evans plays, he needs 860 yards to get another 1,000-yard season. And Baker's going to
all Evans, baby.
Play. Yes. So for those reasons, I'm out on Godwin.
Yeah, take that, Ethan. Hashtag analysis.
I mean, I should have predicted that.
Right.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I almost don't want to say anything else about it. I just kind of want to leave.
Hey, we're moving on.
Let's do just that. Let's go on to the tight end position here. Aaron, we'll start with you this time, my man. Who you got for us at tight end, and why are they going to produce in Week 15?
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Theo Johnson, a guy that's kind of shown flashes on and off this season. I mentioned the Denver's secondary against the slot, but I also want to call out Washington Commanders. They're the second worst in both receptions and yards against the slot. And pretty much for the Giants, it's either Wan'Dale Robinson with 77 targets at the slot and Theo Johnson at number 2 with 33. That's it. Those are the only 2 players, on slot routes. So I like Theo. As you could see earlier in the season, we kind of saw those glimpses of Jackson Dart. Johnson had that 27-point game and 18-point game in the first half of the season before Dart got concussed. So I think, we've said this on the show for 5 straight years. Washington's secondary has not improved in 5 straight years. So I don't think it's going to improve this week as well. So I'm kind of high on Theo Johnson this week as a flex play, especially if you have to stream a tight end. So Theo Johnson's my deeper play this week.
I like Theo Johnson. I think he's been a pretty reliable tight end down the stretch, especially when Jackson Dart plays. I mean, Jackson Dart is going to target him. He had 8 targets last week against New England when Dart came back. So I think Theo Johnson is one of those tight ends that has a pretty safe floor due to his target volume.
Yeah, not much to add. I mean, he's kind of got that. He's a guy is going to be out there. He knows he's going to be running routes. I do think this is a run heavy matchup, but I wouldn't be shocked if early in the game that they try to get Dart going a little bit, try to get him in rhythm, because this whole Giants remainder of the season is all about developing Jackson Dart. So they're not just going to go into the game and hand the ball off 40 times to get out of there. So I do think there's targets to be had for Theo Johnson. I could see him having a good week here. For my pick, I'm sticking in the NFC East. And I'm going with a player who's actually been really consistent so far this year, and that's Dallas Goedert, who is currently ranked TE 19, which does not at all jive with where he's finished so far this season in terms of production. He's currently tight end 7 overall on the season. Just been that reliable safety blanket for Jalen Hurts when he's been called upon, and I think he's going to continue to do so going forward. He might not give you tight end 7 overall ceiling every single week, but I think there's going to be I think there's enough like meat on the bone here in terms of where he's ranked to outperform this. And this is maybe kind of anecdotal, but like everything has been kind of a mess for them lately. And he's kind of one of those stabling presences out there that, when things break down around you, you want guys that are going to be in the right spot, And I think, they've kind of really tried to extend themselves to get A.J. Brown involved in recent weeks. And how's that gone for them in terms of winning and losing games? Like, this is the worst part of their season so far. And Barkley had that long touchdown run, but other than that, he kind of struggled last week too. So I do think in the passing game, Goddard's been kind of just like that steady Eddie, reliable guy. And I think that can continue into the playoffs as well, where they do need to get Hurts some confidence building up before the NFL playoffs. And I think Goddard can be a benefactor of that.
No, I like Goddard. I think Goddard's been a pretty safe bet this year in a game that Hurts struggled mightily against the Chargers. He had 10 targets, 8 catches. So, and I know it hasn't been always consistent in terms of the high target volume, but I mean, sometimes it's just a Goddard game and Hurts locks into him. So, as you said, I think with Hurts struggling mightily last week with all those turnovers, he's probably going to go back to reliable. The safety blanket that is Dallas Goedert. So I think Dallas Goedert for a tight end outside the top 12. I mean, there's probably not a safer option than a guy like Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, definitely safe. I mean, I think Philadelphia is another team that they've had a banged up offensive line is kind of shown. So as you mentioned, he's kind of the safety blanket out there. He is a safe play. You haven't seen all the drama is the A.J. Brown drama this year and whatnot. Goddard's been pretty consistent. So, I mean, the only thing is Las Vegas, you can kind of score on them at will, kind of through the air or through the ground. So it's kind of, kind of take your pick, whether it's, they get running touchdowns or throwing touchdowns against the Raiders. But I still think Goddard's a pretty safe play.
Yeah, I like Goddard this week, but I don't think I like Goddard this week as much as Ethan likes Isaiah Likely. This week, I woke up at like 6 o'clock this morning to text messages in our group text from Ethan talking about Isaiah Likely's Week 15 matchup. So I've been waiting all day and all night to hear this, Ethan. Okay, so tell me, why is Isaiah Likely a must start in Week 15?
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals are the worst defense in the league against the tight end position. And they've been torched by two. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals defense has had one of the historically worst defenses that we've seen in 2025, or historically bad defenses that we've seen over the course of the history of the NFL. And they've been torched by two positions, the running back position and the tight end position. And I think Likely has been steadily getting more and more looks in this Ravens offense. He had almost 100 yards against them in Week 13. And I just really like Likely in the sense that if you need a high upside play at the tight end position, we all know the tight end position sometimes is just a dart throw. It's a coin flip unless you have guys like Trey McBride. I mean, even a guy like Bowers this year has been up and down, right? It's been one of those years. But a guy like Isaiah Likely in what's projected to be a high scoring affair, I think he is going to get peppered, and I think they're going to utilize Likely and Mark Andrews, and that's going to be Lamar Jackson's focus. Kincaid and Knox both played very well against this Bengals defense a week ago, and I see a similar approach that the Ravens are going to take, utilizing their tight ends to exploit the deficiencies in the Bengals defense. So I just love the upside that Likely has. I mean, Could he burn you? Yes, but like I said, if you're in a matchup where you need that upside, I don't think there may be a better tight end that you can stream than Isaiah Likely with the upside he has in this matchup.
Yeah, I think with Likely, it's one where, fortunately, they are playing the Bengals where they are similar to with the Raiders, where I just said, where you can score. I think Derrick Henry's going to have a big game as well. But fortunately, if Burrow can put up points and Chase and all those guys, it's going to make Lamar have to throw the ball. So I think it's shown Lamar's got to throw it. He throws to his tight ends. I think Andrews is also a good play as well. But if you have Andrews, you're probably starting him. But as you said, streaming Likely, I think he's going to get his targets. He's also been very not very lucky this year. He's had 3 touchdowns that really should have been touchdowns this year, where he probably would kind of bump him up in the tight end rankings a little bit more if those were upheld. But he's been a very unlucky tight end this year.
Was that a catch or not, boys, last week? Was that a catch or not?
That's a catch, man. That's a catch.
Looking at it, it's like you think you know what a catch is. You're like, oh, that's a catch. But I think, in my opinion, I think I know why they overturned it. It's you see him get his 2 feet down, but the ball got knocked out before the third step was taken. And you know how the rule is in obviously the field to play with. You got to make a 2 feet down and a football move. I thought the end zone was a little different, so I think you can kind of look at it 2 different ways. But I think that's why they overturned it, because before you could make a football move, that third foot came down, the ball got punched out. But definitely unfortunate for him.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for him to be in. A tough situation for the official as well. I wouldn't want to make a ruling on that one.
No.
But I was going to say that too. Like in that 2 of those plays Aaron's referring to have happened in the last 2 weeks, where Likely's been a back end top 12 tight end in each of those games without that ball getting punched out the goal line against Buffalo and not Buffalo, Cincinnati 2 weeks ago, and then obviously the play we're talking about last week involving Likely in the end zone, where he would have been a monster tight end finisher if those 2 plays stood. If he gets in the end zone on those plays, and we wouldn't be talking about him as like a fringe tight end starter that we want to play. We'd be talking about him as a set it and forget it type of play.
Top 5 guy. Yeah, top 5 guy this week. Just lock it in. Top 5 guy.
Yeah, he wouldn't be in the top. He would be in the top 12 and wouldn't be a guy we could talk about in this discussion. So I think if you can get your hands on him, I scooped him up in a league in the playoffs in today too. He is out there in a number of leagues. So he is a player that's available to you if you need to punch up a tight end. I think he's got some good upside here. So. Yeah, that was a good run down to the tight end positions. We usually end it there after tight end, but we are going to do a speed round, guys, here on kickers and defenses. So I'll get us kicked off here, literally, with kicker. And we don't usually talk about it on this program, but like I said earlier, it's winning time. This is the time where every point matters. So let's do it. I'm going with, and I feel really strongly about this one. I'm going Eddie Pinheiro, who's currently kicker 11 on the season. He's really being overlooked at the moment because he's coming off an injury, but he's expected to play this week. And he's been sneaky productive so far this season when he's been on the field. If you remember, they were going through a whole thing with Jake Moody the last couple of years, a kicker. They kick him to the curb after week 1. They bring in Pinheiro from week 2. So between week 2, when he got the job, and week 11, where he got injured, he's averaged 10.4 kicking points per game. And that makes him the second most productive kicker in the league during that span. And the best thing about him is that he's probably sitting on your waiver wire right now. He's 10% rostered on Yahoo. He's 13% rostered on ESPN, and he's 22% rostered on CBS. That was as of this morning when waivers in most leagues have run on Tuesday nights. So he's probably chilling on your waiver wire right now. And if he is, and you kind of got one of these middling kickers, cut them and go run to the waiver wire and grab Pinheiro and start him in your lineup this week.
Love the conviction. Love the conviction. There.
Love it.
Nothing like a little bit of kicker conviction in week 15, boys.
Hey, if my phone didn't just die, I'd be going to the waiver wire right now. But I guess I'll talk about my hometown team here, the New England Patriots, and Andy Borregales. I keep it simple. It's 50.5 over under. A lot of points going to be scored over the last 3 weeks. He has 15, 18, and 10 points. He's just been getting a lot of opportunity. And as I said, it's going to be a high scoring affair. So at kicker 14, I don't think it's a bad plug and play.
Love it. Love it. I guess I'll just I'll keep going mine. I'm going Jason Myers with Seattle. I don't know what we're gonna get over Indianapolis this week with Philip Rivers possibly making the start. But what I do know, I think Indianapolis does have a grimy defense. Seattle's making a playoff push. So again, playoff teams gotta, they want to secure wins. They gotta take points when they're close. They don't necessarily go for it on fourth as much when the game is so close. So I do think there's gonna be a lot of field goals kicked in this game. So I like Jason Myers a lot in this matchup, Seattle Indy.
Yeah, the Fantasy Pros experts like him a lot too. He's kicker number 2 overall on the list this weekend. That's one way to tell us he didn't listen to the parameters that we have for kickers coming in.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, obviously he's a great play. If the best kicker in fantasy is available, you should go run to your waiver wire and pick him up. But that's okay, Aaron. We don't talk about kickers that often, so we don't. I will forgive you.
You're not up to speed on kicker lingo there.
I was.
I didn't.
Confidence.
That's good. Going back to Ethan's quickly, though, if I could. I like Borregales. He's been scoring points. The Pats offense is good. Coming off a bye, they should be fresh and all that. Just be mindful of the weather. It's the games in New England. There is, at least right now, snow showers projected on Sunday. So at this time of year, you got to be cognizant of weather. Just monitor that as well if you are planning on using him this week.
Well, hey, I'll give you the live weather update while I'm sitting in the nosebleeds in Gillette Stadium. So I'll have an exact picture of the field and feel the weather. So I'm good to go.
Please don't send me that because I'm starting my boy Pinheiro out in California this week, so we're good.
Yeah, I actually.
All right, boys.
Aaron mentioned the guy.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, Aaron mentioned a guy I was gonna bring up in the quarterback discussion in Philip Rivers, but I ended up going with Baker Mayfield anyways.
Oh, yes, they're tight. They're in a neck and neck. Sit there.
That's wild. 44 years old, hasn't played since 2020. Dial him up. He's like, I'm ready to go.
He's gonna be fine.
Some similarities between those two guys. I'll say they're pretty similar guys, actually, from like a competitive standpoint on the field. Like Rivers would get fired up back in the day. It's kind of like what the modern version of Baker Mayfield is now. I think Baker may use a few more curse words out there than Philip Rivers ever used to. I think that's probably a safe bet. But no.
I will yell in your face. That's probably my favorite. Mic'd up of Philip Rivers. He's like 60-yard touchdown. He's like, don't yell that in my face. He's like, I will yell that in your face. The best mic'd up trash talk.
Yeah, Philip Rivers at the podium. They were like, "Hey, Philip, what are you weighing in at now compared to when you left football? Because he looks a little chunkier than he did." And
he does.
And he's like, "What do you mean weighing now?" He's like, "I don't know." It's like he does. I don't know how you can come off the couch and go into an NFL game and not just have your body fall apart without training. It's going to be nice.
You know why he's getting out there, though. The man's got 13 children. I'd be getting up off the couch and playing football, too, if I had 13 kids at home.
That's right.
Is it 13 or 10?
I thought it was
13 sounds better.
Yeah.
All right, mercifully, let's get these defenses fired out here. I'm just going to put mine out there. It's the Saints. They're currently ranked defense number 17 against Carolina. There are better plays out there. I kind of want to just give the listeners a play that's definitely available to them. Like if you're one of those teams that snuck into the playoffs in the last week, you didn't know you were going to be in the playoffs. So this might be something you're faced with where the teams that know they're going to make the playoffs weeks in advance are picking up the defenses that are going to be good to go that you want to fire up this week. So I know these guys are going to be available. They're actually less than 50% rostered in Yahoo, ESPN, and CBS as of this morning. So I'm going with the Saints defense. I just think they're quietly playing better over the last 4 games, where over that span they've allowed 20 or fewer points in all of their games. They're averaging just over 2 sacks per game. They also have 5 takeaways over that span. So they are playing a lot better than they were earlier in the season when they actually ripped off a couple of wins in that span too. They have a home game coming up here against a divisional opponent. And we know that they're playing the Panthers. And we know that the Panthers have been a Jekyll and Hyde team all season long. One week they're great. The next week they're not. The last time we saw them in action, they took down the Rams, who were the Super Bowl favorites. So it would not surprise me at all if they had a bounce-back game against the divisional opponent on the road in this spot here, and Bryce Young kind of turns back into a pumpkin a little bit down the stretch and gives us, 2 or 3 turnovers, and the Saints are the benefactor of that. And you got him in your lineup nice and cheap at the last second.
Yeah, no, I mean the Saints. I mean it's tough because you just don't know what Carolina team they're going to be up against. The Carolina team that beat the Rams or the Carolina team that got shellacked versus our Patriots 45-13. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, definitely. I mean, Carolina is definitely not a matchup I'd be scared to start a defense against, and it's a divisional game. So those are usually more low scoring competitive games.
Yeah, I love it. I love you calling them out. I think I'm the DFS guy, so I was looking for a cheap defense. They're definitely cheap this week, but I think just like week 15 fantasy. I mean, you in the real life, you got rookies they're trying to see a little bit more snaps with this time of year, and then also just on the defense, the guys are playing for their jobs for next year too, whether their contracts up or they're trying to get a look to start on a team next year. So I mean, this time where these bad teams, these players are actually playing for their lives out there. So you might get a pick six or some crazy strip sack or something. So I don't mind that against Bryce Young, as you said. Nice call out.
All right, Ethan, we let Ethan get away with a hometown kicker call. Aaron, you're going with your hometown defense. So tell me why the Kansas City Chiefs, who are not going to make the playoffs this year, tell me why their defense is a good play this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, a lot of people are out on the Chiefs. I mean, they should be, with their playoff chances now. But it's really the defense has not really let them down. They're still a great unit. They're 14th ranked defense this week, but they are playing the Chargers. Chargers, who are the bottom pass blocking and run blocking offensive line in the league, and they're playing in Kansas City. I mean, I think Kansas City's still a team where they're still going to show some heart. I mean, they're going to get after the quarterback. So I mean, in KC, I don't care if you're making the playoffs or not. It's always tough to play there. I have to look past my favoritism with them, but I think just defensively, I think they're a good play. I think like I said, home team against struggling offensive line. I mean, Herbert had a pretty rough time with hurries and sacks last week.
I don't hate the call at all, considering kind of how poorly Herbert looked at times against the Eagles. That hand is definitely bothering him. He had a decent amount of turnovers. So again, in a divisional matchup. So I think targeting a struggling Chargers offense in a divisional matchup isn't a bad call. And to Kamish's point, the teams that knew they were going to be locked for the playoffs, picking up defenses a week or two out. I actually picked the Kansas City Chiefs up in a couple of leagues last week, but not for this week, for next week when they play the Tennessee Titans in the leagues I have buys in. So I think Kansas City can be viable for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're going to be a team that, if you can still get your hands on them, they're a team that's good for not only for this week but for the stretch run. I think their week is it the Jets next week they get in week 16. That's
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a cleanup spot for them there. So I'm stashing them as well in the league, or I'm in the playoffs too. So I think the Chiefs are a good call. This is great. We can talk about the Chiefs being a good call for fantasy, but not a threat in the playoffs. This is perfect. We can just get this every year.
Yes,
every year that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah. All right, Ethan, close us out here. Who are you rolling with on defense this week?
Yeah, I'm rolling with San Francisco. They were the 6th ranked defense this week. And they're going against the Tennessee Titans, who allow the 2nd most points to opposing defenses. They have the 4th highest sack rate. Cam Ward has just been an absolute disaster. The Tennessee Titans have been an absolute disaster. They showed a little bit of life against the Cleveland Browns last week. But I think San Francisco, they've shown, even though they've been up and down defensively, they've shown they can take advantage of poor matchups. They scored out pretty well when last time they played Cleveland and some other of these bad offenses. So I think they can keep that rolling against subpar offenses. And I think San Francisco is a good play and is another defense I picked up a week earlier, just seeing the matchup on the slate.
I'm stashing them as well too. So I think this is another team that's a good call. It's one of those things where if you have the benefit of like kind of chilling for a couple of weeks, you're going to make the playoffs, so you can kind of focus on that. You don't mind tying up an extra roster spot in a defense you're not going to use for a month because you've already done the work you need to do to get into the playoffs. So that's another team that I targeted as well. So I like to call it for this week and maybe even down the line too a little bit. We'll see. We'll see how they play this week. But that's what I got. Aaron, any final thoughts here before we wrap this up?
I have something for our next segment, but I'll wait. But no, I like the call with San Fran. I mean, it's worked all year against Tennessee. So this is also, like you said, the time. Look what defense you have for the next 2 weeks. What's their lineup look like? Because you might need to use them again.
All right. Well, fair enough, Aaron. Lead us into our next segment.
All right. So this is a hot off the press. It's actually directed towards Ethan.
Oh boy.
I have on Instagram. It said Isaiah Likely or Harold Fanton Jr. Wow. Where did
it's funny. Isaiah Likely and Harold Fanton. Me and Commission, actually my brother had a discussion about these two players, and I think you as well, Aaron. I picked both these guys up in a league I'm playing this week, and because I wasn't exactly sure who I wanted to start, and also I didn't want my opponents to pick up Fannin, where I was a couple teams left in the playoffs were struggling at tight end as well, but I would go with Likely. As I said, I think the upside is there. The Bengals the matchup is just so fruitful. I think Lamar is going to have a great day against Cincinnati. I think Likely is going to be a huge benefactor. As we said, Likely, if he would have had the benefit of getting those touchdowns, I don't think he would even be available in most Yahoo leagues. So if I think both are good options. I think Fannon's going to get a healthy number of targets, but I'm going to go upside with Likely, which I know is not a consensus pick. I know Fannon's ranked relatively high this week. I just think I'm just looking for upside. I think
I would go Harold Fannin Jr. If I'm being honest with you, I mean he's just dominating the snap rates the last 3 weeks. He's the guy I actually wrote up on one of the articles I write for Dynasty League Football, DLF for short. If you heard of it, the topic of the article is players to target for 2026. And my tight end call is Harold Fannin Jr. because of what we're seeing right now. He's played 90% or more of the snaps each of their team's last 3 games. Saw 11 targets last week, 5 the week before, 6 the week before that. I mean, he's a guy that Sanders is locking onto. And Chicago's not – they're kind of a middle-of-the-road matchup. They rank 13th in terms of points allowed to the position. I just think it's been a hostile takeover for Fannin at the position. And where I like Likely a lot this week as well, too, in the matchup. But Mark Andrews is also kind of hanging around there, taking away a little bit more, I think, than David Njoku is in Cleveland. So you could argue Lamar is better than – even a hurt Lamar is better than whatever Cleveland has a quarterback. That's fine. But Sanders did show some signs of life last week, and I think I would probably prefer Fannin. But in any event, I feel really good about both guys. I do think Fannin was number 4 overall on Fantasy Pros ECR. I think that's a little high, and I think Likely is ranked a little bit too low as well at tight end, whatever it was, 13 or 14. Whatever that can. I mean, I think the gap is a little bit closer there, but I would lean Fannin Jr. over Likely if given the choice.
Yeah, no, Fannin is, I think, probably the safer play based on his usage, and I think Njoku, I don't know what his health status is. He may miss this game. I know Njoku got hurt on that touchdown last week, and he missed the rest of the game, and Fannin kind of went off after that. I don't trust Cleveland. I don't really trust Shedeur Sanders, and I don't want to overreact to a very good outing by Fannin. I mean, he kind of started off high, had a pretty good start to the year, then kind of fell off, and he's kind of just been meh over the last few weeks. And then he really had a breakout last week, and I just don't want to overreact to it. I think Fannin was 6th on the Fantasy Pros ranking not too long ago, so it sounds like he just keeps moving up. So I guess it goes back to kind of what you need. I think both Fannin and Likely have upside. I just love the matchup in Cincinnati. It's definitely a tough call.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're pretty close. They're definitely close. I think if you have both of them, it is a kind of a tough decision, but I would leave lean Fannin a little bit more just with the Njoku possibly being injured or out. But yeah, Fannin's been pretty strong all year long, no matter what quarterback's been there. So yeah, I would probably go Fannin.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I need some upside in this league, so that's why I was kind of leaning likely. I mean, like I said, Fannin has upside too, but I mean, Shador and Cleveland, it's just tough to trust. And I also caveat, I have Lamar Jackson at quarterback, so you get the little stack.
Stack of
There you go.
Stack City.
Stack City.
What else we got for questions, Aaron? Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's all I got. We can let me check our Discord, but you can kill some time real quick. I think there was one.
Yeah, there was one come through on the YouTube chat. It was a little while ago, so I'm not sure if Mr. Pugh is still hanging around or not. But we had a question come up of, are the Denver Broncos winning the Super Bowl? I presume the question is for this year.
I would say no. As a New England Patriots fan, I would say no, right? Because hey, Drake May is going to lead us to the promised land.
Yeah, you know where I'm at with Broncos.
Yeah, the Chiefs fan over there.
So yeah, I'm never gonna root for the Broncos. So I'm sorry, Mr. Pugh, but I'm out on the Broncos pretty heavily.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl this year either. They've had a really good season. Sean Payton's in the mix for Coach of the Year. I think Michael Vrabel should win it as a Patriots fan. But if Denver gets the number 1 seed, it's interesting because I think that their defense is awesome, and even though the Patriots are amazing, their kryptonite was going to Denver in the playoffs. And Ethan and I have nothing but we have a lot of really good memories as Patriots fans who are in our mid-30s. Our whole lives are great except for the last 2 years, but. The bad memories, most of them are in Denver in the playoffs. So that is a scary place to go and try to win a game in January. So they have that going for them. The end of their end of season schedule though is pretty tough. They're neck and neck with the Patriots right now. Their games this week, they're home against the Packers, they're home against Jacksonville, they get on the road at Kansas City, and then they're home against the Chargers. All those teams are in the mix of the playoffs. Even if the Chiefs are out of it by then, it's still at Arrowhead, division game on the road. So Mr. Pugh disagrees. He thinks he's going to be. That this team's going to win, so I get it. But I think I think if this team has to go on the road, they're going to be in trouble just because of what they don't have on offense. I think their defense is excellent. They're going to be great, but I don't think that they have enough firepower. I don't think Bo Nix is going to go on a run. And if they don't get the first round bye, I don't see them coming out of the AFC at all, winning 3 playoff games.
Agreed. Yeah, I did find the Discord question, by the way. I threw it up on the screen.
Okay,
so this is a defense question. So the choices are all the teams that are at home. So he can pick Pittsburgh, Denver, or Dallas. I guess I'll kind of lead off while you guys are thinking. I ended up just saying Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh's a tough place to play at home. I know Miami's going to be kind of coming for him as well, but I think Pittsburgh, as much as it's kind of gruesome to watch them make playoff runs each year, I think their defense does show up when they need to. So out of those 3, I would probably go Pittsburgh.
I'm in lockstep with you. I just don't trust the Dallas defense enough to put them out there this week with all the money on the table in the playoffs. I just think that they're too up and down as it is. They're too more down than up as it is, and it's at home. That's great, but I think they've been getting carved up too much to trust that. And then the Green Bay Denver game, I think Green Bay's offense is good enough to go in there, and they want to run the ball, right? So. And if it's a low-scoring rock fight, there's probably not going to be a lot of turnovers in that game, which isn't good for scoring. So I think your best shot is Pittsburgh, who at least has a decent enough pass rush with T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, that they can get 2 off of the spot. 2 is not very mobile, and maybe they're playing from ahead and they get 2 and making some mistakes, things like that. So I think I would probably lean Miami here.
Hey, question is A-Chain banged up?
A little bit. He didn't break. There was concern that he may have broken his ribs. He did not. I guess if they weren't playing the Jets, he could have came in an emergency situation. So I think he's going to be good to go.
Yeah, monitor the practice reports on that one. They play on Monday night, so they didn't practice today. So We'll know more in the coming days on his status, but by all means, he avoided any major injury. And they're sneaky in the playoff mix, too. Believe it or not, they're a game or two out of the wild card spot. So they do need this win. So if he's able to go, I imagine he's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The Miami Dolphins have the same record as the Kansas City Chiefs.
What a thought. Who would have thought? All right. I think that's what we got for questions, comments. There, Kamish.
All right. Awesome, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Everyone who tuned in live, that was great. Thanks for firing those questions away. Make sure you're hitting that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be here to help you, too, throughout the remainder of the playoffs and then all off season, too, on the Dynasty front. So a lot of fun stuff going on here. Good luck to everyone else in their playoffs, folks. And until next time, peace.